Today, I'm going to help you get ready so you can help your kid get ready for their first period. Thornhill, sexuality educator, here in my office as usual, but these are unusual times. COVID-19, oh my gosh. I was away on a holiday when the pandemic was declared. My kid and I had to rush back home, and now our entire family is in quarantine, but that gives me time to make videos, which I have not done in a while. So happy to be back doing this, and I hope wherever you are well, and if you're not, I hope that you get well soon, and I hope you're coping, because this is weird. It's a really weird time. This is not a video about COVID-19. This video is for you if your child has just got their first period, or if you think their first period, might be coming up soon and you want to be prepared. You want to know how to help them, how to support them. Yeah, this is the video for you. When your kid gets their first period, it's really important to speak in hushed tones. Do not make eye contact with your menstruating child. Just look away. If you are a dad, you need to avoid the situation altogether. Do not be in the same room with them. Do not buy them any menstrual products. And it's really important to remember that this is a very awkward and highly dramatic situation. So act accordingly. Just freak right out. Obviously, I'm kidding. Those are mostly behaviors that I would encourage you to avoid. Having a period is a change. It's going to be a new experience for your child, and they may have different feelings about that. They may react to it in lots of different ways. Try to be sensitive to how they're feeling. Talk to them about what's going on. It's definitely something they may have to adjust to and learn how to manage, but it does not have to be this big life-changing thing. They're still essentially the same person. Right off the bat, let's briefly overview what a period is. Periods, we are talking about folks with ovaries, uteruses, cervixes, and vaginas. I will put a diagram up here, so I'm gonna just slide to the side here so we can put a diagram here and you have a visual reference. Ovaries. The ovaries contain human eggs or ova, and during puberty, the ova begin to mature. During a person's first menstrual cycle, an ovary will release a mature egg into the fallopian tubes. On occasion, both ovaries may release eggs separately. Meanwhile, the lining of the uterus, it is called the endometrial layer, is becoming thicker and engorged with blood. The reason the body creates this thick, bloody lining in the uterus is because if the egg that's been released is fertilized by a sperm, that fertilized egg will travel through the fallopian tube down into the uterus and implant in the endometrial layer, and the blood basically provides sort of fuel or food for that fertilized egg. The cells will continue to divide, and then you have the beginnings of a pregnancy. But if a person's eggs are not fertilized, then the body doesn't need that thick endometrial lining, at which point it's like clearance sale, all of this blood must go. And so the uterus sheds all of the excess blood. It flows down through the cervix into the vagina and out of the body, and that is what we call menstruation or a period. I often get questions, especially from younger folks, about periods. So I just want to answer a couple of the more common questions that I get. What age on average do people get their period? Personally, I don't find averages super helpful or useful in discussions like these when we are talking about supporting a particular person, you know, your particular child or even your particular students, because they're individuals. And so the average doesn't really give us much useful information. What I will talk about is the range. For most people, who menstruate. They will get their first period sometime between 9 and 14 years old, and that's most people. So just be aware that there are some people who may get their period when they're a little younger than 9, and there are people who will get their first period, when they are a little bit older than 14, but most people will sort of fall somewhere in that age range. Some kids have vulvas but are intersex. And because of differences in either their gonads, their chromosomes, or their sex hormones, they don't hit all of these sort of common puberty milestones, and so they may either get a period much later, or in some cases they may not ever get a period. Also, youth who are on puberty blockers will not get a period until they go off of puberty blockers. Similarly, teens with ovaries who are taking testosterone as part of hormonal therapy because they're undergoing gender transition or confirmation, oftentimes will not get a period because of the testosterone. A question I often get from kids and youth about periods is, do periods hurt? Kind of yes, no, and maybe. Periods do involve bleeding. A lot of kids associate bleeding with pain, and specifically the type of pain that is caused by an injury, because when kids bleed, it's usually because they have hurt themselves. So they're thinking of like a cut or a scrape or a wound or something. Periods don't hurt in that way. They don't hurt in the way that a cut hurts, because you aren't actually injured. So you're not going to get that kind of like stinging, burning kind of pain with a period, or at least you shouldn't be getting that kind of pain. For those of us who have had periods, we know that periods can definitely come with pain and discomfort. One of the most common forms of pain associated with periods are cramps. And cramps happen generally because as the uterus is shedding its lining, it contracts, and sometimes if those contractions are more intense, they can be uncomfortable. Sometimes they can be downright painful. Something else that might occur is because our sex hormones, so estrogens, our progesterone, and even our testosterone, those levels have changed, and that can lead to uncomfortable symptoms like headaches or nausea. Some folks experience other painful or uncomfortable symptoms like digestive issues or, pain in other parts of the body. It depends. It really depends. Like for some people, those symptoms are very mild or they're occasional. Some people don't really have a lot of uncomfortable symptoms with their periods. Some people have, really intense like painful symptoms associated with their periods. Another question I get frequently is, what is the deal with period hormones and moodiness? All right, let me get comfy in my chair here. Yes, hormones often impact people's moods, and yes, our emotional responses may be different or more intense during our periods. I know, speaking for myself, definitely there is a noticeable change. It's also common to be tired during a period because the body is doing more work. Also, if you are getting up in the night to change your period products, you may not be sleeping as well. And fatigue also affects our mood. Also, periods can be uncomfortable, first for all of the physical reasons that I mentioned, and also because we have all of these stupid social taboos. While blood is coming out of your vagina, you feel like you have to behave as though blood is not coming out of your vagina, and you have to be all stealth and try to hide it from people and be all discreet. All of that is stressful. And what that means is that you have all of that stress on top of the normal stress of life, because life is stressful. And so yes, sometimes when you're having your period, it may just feel like a little bit too much. And so the regular things that stress you out, where you might have, a mild or moderate reaction, you might have a little bit more intensive reaction to things that are like pissing you off or upsetting you. And so you might find yourself crying, or you might feel a little bit more snappish or short-tempered. I think it's important to note that while your reactions may be different, or a person's reactions may be different during their period, it does not mean that they are being irrational. Those reactions are still happening in response to something that is upsetting or, infuriating or stressful It's just the way the person reacts may be different, may be more intense than the way they would react when they are not dealing with their period. Now let's talk about menstrual products. If you have the money and the access, what you can do is you can get some of these products ahead of time. It may even be worth sort of getting a variety of different products, like different brands, different types, so that your kid has options when they have, you know, their first period or even their first few periods. They can try different things and see what works for them. First up, let's talk about pads. Pads are basically like flat, absorbent, rectangular deals that you lay inside of your underpants, and they are there to absorb the blood so that it does not get onto your underwear or your clothes. Pads are made of absorbent materials, usually cotton, and you can get either disposable pads, which you use once and throw away, or reusable pads, which you wash and then use again. How often you change them will really depend on how heavily you're bleeding. If you're bleeding a lot, you may need to change them more frequently. If you are not bleeding so much, you may need to change them less frequently, but ideally you want to change them before they are saturated and then you start leaking onto your clothes. Quick side note about leaks. I think it's great to let newly minted menstruators know that leaks happen. They're really common. They even happen to those of us who have been menstruating for decades. I'm talking about this gal right here. The body has fluids and sometimes they cannot be contained. Just let them know leaks, it's a thing. If it happens, then you'll just deal with it when it happens. Okay, back to products. Tampons. Tampons are oblong pieces of absorbent material that are put inside the vagina to absorb the blood. You can get disposable tampons that are usually made of cotton, or you can get reusable tampons that are usually made of some sort of organic, body-friendly sponge. Some tampons come with an applicator, and it's basically a tube of either plastic or cardboard, and it's got this piece, and you push on it, and it basically pushes the tampon into the vagina. Other tampons don't have an applicator, and so you just push the tampon in with your finger. Once a tampon is inserted, if it's inserted properly, you shouldn't really be able to feel it at all. And like with pads, how often you change it depends on how heavy your flow is. However, it is not recommended that you leave a tampon in for more than 8 hours maximum. If you leave a tampon in too long, then you are at risk for developing something called toxic shock syndrome. When a tampon is left in the vagina for too long, there is a higher likelihood of bacteria, toxic bacteria developing inside the vagina, and so that bacteria can lead to TSS, which can make people very, very ill, and in some cases can lead to death. So we just, we don't want to leave our tampons in all day and all night. Tampons also come in different absorbencies. So if your period is flowing like the mighty river, then you might go for like a super absorbency tampon. If it's just like a light trickle, like a stream, you might go for a light absorbency tampon. And then if you're somewhere in between, there are what are called like regular absorbency tampons. So yeah, you may use like different absorbencies at different points during your period. Menstrual cups. Menstrual cups are little cups. They are usually made of a flexible, non-porous material like silicone. They're actually folded flat. You slide them in the vagina right up to the cervix, and then they pop open. So they basically form like a seal over the cervix, and then the blood just flows and is collected inside the cup. When the cup is full, pull it out, dump out the blood, put it back in. There are lots of different brands of variations on the design, so your kid can find one that feels, comfortable and fits their body well. You can wash them, you can sterilize them, you can boil them. Oftentimes you can put them in a dishwasher and they will be fine and ready to go the next month. So If your kid likes the menstrual cup, they find one that works for them, they can use the same menstrual cup potentially for years and years. They can also be left in longer than tampons, both because they generally collect more blood than a single tampon, and also because they're non-porous. There's no worry about, bacteria developing on them. There's no risk of toxic shock syndrome. Once a cup is full, it can be emptied into a toilet or a sink and then reinserted. If your kid wants to rinse it out before reinserting it, they can do that at a sink. When I was a menstrual cup user, I found that if I was in public, emptying or rinsing the cup out in the sink was kind of a whole situation. I would actually empty it into the toilet, but then I'd have to go to the sink to rinse it, so I'd have to make this makeshift toilet paper pad, because obviously I was still bleeding, pull up my pants, go to the sink, rinse out the cup, it had blood in it. If there was someone next to me, that was always a little bit awkward, and then I'd have to go back into the stall, reinsert the cup, then go back out, wash my hands again. It was kind of a whole thing. And it may feel like a whole thing for your kid, particularly, if they're at school or if they're in another public place. If they don't want to rinse it out between each use, that's fine. Again, cups do not absorb bacteria. They're not going to absorb any odor. So if they just want to do a quick wipe with toilet paper while they're in the bathroom stall, reinsert it, they can always rinse it out later when they're at home or somewhere where they have just a bit more privacy. And finally, we have period underwear. This is underwear with a special built-in super absorbent crotch area. So period underwear can be used alone, or it can be used as a backup with another period product like a tampon or a menstrual cup. I use period underwear as a backup because I have a large uterine fibroid, which means that when I have my period, I bleed a lot. And there is basically no single product that will contain it all. So I use two, and my backup is period underwear, and it works really, really well for me. The underwear is basically the same thickness as regular underwear, so it's not especially bulky or anything. The material is slightly different. The period underwear that I have, the material is it's smoother. It's sort of like a bathing suit material, but again, it's thin, like a regular underpant. It doesn't feel thick like a bathing suit. Just a few more random tidbits about periods. Some people have what we would call regular periods, and all that means is that the intervals between their periods and then the number of days that their periods last are fairly consistent and predictable. A lot of people have what we call irregular periods, which means that the length of time between their periods is not consistent or predictable, and or the number of days that their period lasts is not consistent or predictable. This is especially true with younger people who are in the first years of having their periods. It can take a while before the body regulates and has sort of a regular cycle, and for some people they never have a regular cycle. It is also true that people's periods will change over the course of their lives. So at certain points in their lives they may have a regular cycle, and at other points in their lives they may not have a regular cycle. They may bleed more, they may bleed less. Periods change, they're different. And so if your kid does not have a regular period, that in and of itself is not cause for alarm or worried. But if there is anything about your kid's menstrual cycle that is concerning to them or is concerning to you, definitely checking in with a medical professional is something that you can do. Finally, a person can get pregnant before they have their first period, because before a person has their first period, their first actual menstrual flow, 14 days before that, they will have their first ovulation. And if a person has ovulated and they have the kind of sex where a person has ejaculated sperm into their body, that first egg can be fertilized, and that can lead to a pregnancy. So if you have, or if you want to learn more about reducing youth risk of unintended pregnancy, or reducing anybody's risk of an unintended pregnancy, or how to support youth who are dealing with an unintended pregnancy. I have a little video of, wow, words, what? I have a little video mini series on youth and pregnancy, and I will link it both in the eye and down below. So do you have any comments, questions, ideas about how to help youth who are just experiencing their first period? Chat with me down in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, like the video, share it, do all of the YouTube things. I hope you're having a great day, and if not, I just hope you're getting through pandemic life as best as you can. I will see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.